Hey guys, Tyrep here, and today we're taking a look at the patch notes for Warcraft 3 version 1.32.6. We'll jump right into the juicy stuff, the balance changes here. Human Mountain King, Thunderclap cooldown increased from 6 seconds to 7 seconds across all levels. So it's, no changes to its stats or anything like that, so it's still going to be powerful, but you won't be able to just constantly clap. Especially when you're high on mana early in fights, there'll be a little bit more time to reposition in between claps. Just a very slight nerf there, nothing too major to the Mountain King. Rifleman, attack delay increased from 1.35 to 1.4. So I believe this means that they'll be attacking slower. Attack delay, I'm not really too familiar with that terminology. I did look up, most time it's called attack speed or base cooldown time or something like that, not attack delay. But yeah, I think it means they'll be attacking slower. So a slight nerf to the DPS to Rifleman here, and they say that this is focused on the human versus Night Elf Rifleman push, which I didn't think was too strong. This seems a little bit unusual to me, but alright. Pretty minor change there. Paladin, Resurrection mana cost reduced from 200 to 150. This is a pretty big reduction. Pretty rare to see level 6 Paladins. Don't often see Paladin first strategies these days. So I imagine this is not going to have too big of an impact on multiplayer. But maybe in team games, FFA, you might see some more level 6 Pally action, and maybe this will help out. Down to 150, pretty good buff there. Moving on to Orc, the Shadow Hunter, Big Bad Voodoo mana cost is being reduced from 200 to 150, so 50 mana cheaper now. And maybe this will make it a bit more appealing to use. I still don't think it'll be terribly effective, but maybe you'll find yourself with 150 mana now all of a sudden, instead of having to spend it on healing constantly. Maybe after a mana potion you'll be able to cast it. So maybe you'll see a tiny bit more play, but pretty minor buff there, honestly. But that's kind of a theme for this patch. They're doing a lot of changes to channeling ultimates. So we're about to see here with the Farseer changes. Earthquake duration is being reduced from 25 to 20 seconds, so 5 seconds shorter. Building damage per second increased from 50 to 60, so making up for that reduction in duration. It's increased in damage. And the mana cost is also being reduced from 150 to 125. And this is a big one here. Earthquake no longer affects friendly units and structures. So that's a big change. The damage over time, maybe that's nice if you're going for a base race scenario, maybe against human and their expansions or something. I could see Earthquake coming in handy there, these changes, but no longer affecting friendlies. That's a big change. And Farseer is still quite popular these days, so I think it's within reason that we'll actually see these Earthquake changes have some effect in real multiplayer games. Tauren Chieftain, Warstomp cooldown increased per level from 6 at all levels to 7 at all levels. So this is a big one. Because, Warstomp level 3, 5 second stun, 6 second cooldown. It gave you very little room to maneuver or get anything done in that 1 second window. So going up a whole more extra second in terms of cooldown, that's actually a pretty big change. But still going to be very, very strong. The area it targets, still a long stun, no change to the damage. But yeah, just a slight nerf to the cooldown here. Give you a bit more time to reposition in between stomps. I think that's a pretty reasonable nerf, honestly. Witch Doctor's getting buffed here. Stasis Trap activation delay decreased from 10 to 9 seconds, so I believe that's how long it takes between planting it and then it going invisible and able to pop off. And detection radius reduced from 250 to 175, so I believe that means that you're going to have to run closer to it to activate it. So it does kind of increase the chances of actually getting stunned by it, because you'll be closer to it. It doesn't mention the stun radius is going down or anything like that. So if you run close to the fringe of it, maybe you'll still be within range of getting stunned with this shorter detection radius. And the activation time reduced from 1 second to half a second. So that doesn't give you much time after it reveals itself to kill it. You'll have to be super fast if you want to kill it like that. So I think there's a very good chance of these stasis traps actually being quite powerful now. I've seen Grubby sometimes mixing them into these games even before this patch, so I'm sure he'll be happy about this. Could be a new meta. Witch Doctors, eh? Night Elf, Keeper of the Grove. Entangling Roots cast range on level 3 increased from 600 to 800. So just at level 3, he's going to be able to cast Entangling Roots from further away. Will help in those like big team fights. You maybe want to stand a little bit further back with your Keeper. Stay away from danger, away from like ensnares, Blade Master focus. You got to cast from further away. Easier to keep him safe, which is kind of cool. I think it used to be this long, like maybe a 1.32.0, but received some nerfs. But now, yeah, buffed to level 3. I think that's a reasonable change. Tranquility, another channeling ultimate that is getting changed here. The invulnerability time removed, so it had like a second or two right at the start of Tranquility where the Keeper would go invulnerable. I think that was a relatively new change, and now that's being removed. And the duration here is being reduced from 15 seconds to 12, but the healing has increased in response to that from 40 to 48. So, man, killing a unit while Tranquility's going was already hard. Now it's going to be even harder. But yeah, removing that invulnerability time, you won't be able to like Tranquility use that invulnerability time to dodge like a Stormbolt or anything like that. And it does mean that you will be more vulnerable to getting cancelled immediately by things like Ensnare or Silence, Stun. So I think overall, a bit of a nerf maybe to Tranquility, but not a huge deal. Now we're talking about Druid of the Claw. Base damage in bear form increased from 23 to 24, so just a very slight buff to their damage here. They've kind of been out of the meta. We've seen a lot of like mass archers, mountain giants, but very little bears these days, so maybe this will push them a little bit further into relevancy. Mentions here they want to make it especially against Undead. Is what they're targeting with this change. Druid of the Talon, gold cost reduced from 145 to 135, and they mention here that this is like a revert of a previous nerf. Because Druid of the Talon used to be the go-to strategy against Orc. You mass them up 50 food, triple heroes, Tinker third. Used to be very, very effective, but we've almost seen none of them for a very, very long time, and maybe this will nudge them back towards relevancy. I have heard that some Chinese players have occasionally been throwing it in against the Orc matchup, and maybe this will help them pursue that strategy further, which will be nice. It's always nice to see a variety of strategies. Moving on to Undead, we got the Crypt Lord getting a lot of changes here. Impale can no longer be interrupted. Units knocked airborne can now take damage and be attacked. So it used to be the case when units would get impaled, they'll be invulnerable. So you'd lose your targeting on them, and it'd be really bad, honestly. You got your Lich or your Fiends focusing a unit, goes up in the air, invulnerable. That's just terrible for Undead focus fire. So some big buffs here to Impale, and I believe no longer can be interrupted. I think it's if you like cast it and then you give a move order, I think it'll just continue casting it. It won't get interrupted. So you won't get like a third of an Impale out or something like that. So yeah, some pretty big changes to Impale there. Maybe we'll see the rise of Crypt Lord. Third once again instead of Dark Ranger or Pit Lord, like it's popular these days. Crypt Lord cast point increased from 0.4 to 0.5. Not exactly sure what that means. But here's another big one. Carrion Beetle's mana cost increased from 30 to 45, but now spawns 2 beetles at a time, up from 1, and you can get 6 beetles instead of 5. Cooldown also has increased from 6 seconds to 9 seconds. So you'll be able to get more beetles for cheaper. You'll get them 2 at a time. But man, this is a big change. Maybe we could see some Crypt Lord fast expansion strategies. Death Knight, animate dead mana cost reduced from 175 to 125. So a 50 cost reduction, kind of similar to the Paladin with Resurrection that we saw earlier. But animate dead, I still think it's just not very good. The Paladin, you get them back forever. Animate dead, they just come back as invulnerable for a relatively short timer. Generally, the opponent can just disengage while it's going. And oftentimes, you really strap for mana on your Death Knight as well. So I don't really see that making a huge change, but maybe we'll see a little bit more Animate Dead at level 6 instead of level 3 Aura. Skeleton Warriors, these are the ones you get from the Rod of Necromancy. Base hit points are being reduced from 190 to 180. The developers say that they are targeting the human versus undead early game, where the undead comes in, harasses the peasants as they try to put up the expansion and creep the expansion position. So a slight health decrease to make them a little bit easier to deal with. Ritual Dagger. Total hit points regenerated per charge increased from 125 to 175. 50 extra health per charge. That is quite a lot. And that's over the same duration as well. So, health per second increased quite a lot higher. That's actually a pretty big buff to the Ritual Dagger, which has seen almost no use. Did see, I think, Infi use it the other day against Moon, I think it was. But yeah, I think that's the first time I've really seen a Ritual Dagger in a pro game. So maybe we'll actually see some Ritual Daggers, and they mentioned maybe they'll be popular with Crypt Lord first players. They don't have access to the Death Coil. They'll be able to make use of the Ritual Dagger with the new and improved Beetles, which could be a spicy strategy. Moving on to the neutral or tavern heroes, we've got the Beastmaster here. Summon Bear mana cost reduced from 125 to 100. A slight mana buff here. Beastmaster has kind of fallen out of the meta. It used to be quite popular with like tower pushes with human or Night Elf second hero, sometimes even first hero. Almost like fallen completely off the radar. And when they did pick Beastmaster, it was always Quillbore, always Hawk. So maybe we'll see some bear action instead. Probably not, but it's a pretty harmless and nice buff anyway to the Beastmaster. Pit Lord, a change to its ultimate Doom here. Unit afflicted by Doom now has its movement speed slowed by 50%. So pretty rare to see a level 6 Pit Lord, even though Pit Lord is kind of popular these days, with maybe Undead as the third hero helping push a human expansion. But even with a lot of other races, seeing like Pit Lord third, just for the Howl of Terror for reducing the opponent's army damage has been quite a popular option. So just a slight buff here to the Pit Lord ultimate, nothing too major. Fire Lord, another channeling ultimate getting changed here. Volcano eruption waves decreased from 8 to 5. Wave interval reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. Increased building damage factor from 2 to 3. And no longer affects friendly units and structures. So yeah, less waves, more damage on buildings, doesn't hit friendly units. Quite a few buffs, pretty rare to see level 6 Fire Lord. But yeah, it might be a bit more useful in making a push against like a human base or something if you've gone for like an early Fire Lord first kind of tower rush strategy and it failed. And yeah, not hitting friendly units means you're going to be able to cast it much more freely in your opponent's lines while still having your units there to fight them as well. So a pretty nice change there to the Fire Lord ultimate. Naga Sea Witch, Tornado Random Wander behavior removed. So when you cast it, it won't just like randomly start moving around outside of your control. You have more control over it, which is nice. Mana cost reduced from 200 to 125. Big reduction in mana cost there. Going to make this much more accessible just by popping like a mana potion. Reduced duration from 40 seconds to 20 seconds, but close building damage per second increased from 50 to 100, and fire damage also doubled. So half as long, but twice as much damage. Might actually be quite powerful at pushing down an expansion or something. You'll be able to knock it down maybe even before they have time to react and town portal back. I'm not sure, but maybe. So yeah, some buffs here to Tornado. Another channeling ultimate getting buffed. Kind of cool to see. Couple very minor changes here to the creeps. Nothing too important. Moving on to the items now. Potion of Greater Mana. Mana restored reduced from 300 to 250. So that's a pretty big nerf. And the regular Potion of Mana, the one you can buy from shops that you build in your base or whatever. Mana restored reduced from 150 to 125, but then also the cost is getting reduced from 200 to 150, so it does make it a little bit more efficient, which is, I think we're going to see a bit more play of that, especially from Undead, which is already a pretty popular item there. Pendant of Energy, mana provided decreased from 150 to 100, so that's a pretty damn big nerf to the Pendant of Energy there. And then from here, there are some like high tier drops from like high tier creep camps that are getting changed. Red Drake Egg is getting removed and then getting replaced by a Blue Drake Egg. So that's pretty strong, Blue Drake going to have the Frost Breath, going to make it a bit more powerful perhaps in fights. Talisman of the Wild is getting removed, replaced by Idol of the Wild, which summons a Furbolg Tracker for 180 seconds, only one charge. Talisman of the Wild have what, like 3 or 5? It's interesting. Scroll of Restoration, hit points restored down from 300 to 150. So that's a pretty big change, big nerf to Scroll of Restoration there. Scroll of Animate Dead removed from default level 6 charged drop list. Interesting. Scepter of Mastery is a charged level 6 item that takes permanent control of an enemy unit within range of 601 charge. Cannot be used on heroes or creeps above level 5. So it's kind of like a charm. It's like a charm on a stick, basically. Kind of cool. Scroll of Resurrection removed from the default level 6 charge drop list. And Scepter of Avarice is a new charge level 6 item that instantly kills an enemy unit within range of 601 charge. Gain gold equal to 75% of its cost. Cannot be used on heroes or creeps above level 5. So kind of like Transmute on a stick. Interesting new items from these high level creep camps. Inferno Stone, drop level increased from level 6 charged to level 7 artifact. I think that's fair enough. Inferno is very, very strong. And finally for items, Engraved Scale is a new charge level 6 item that summons a blue Dragonspawn Overseer for 180 seconds, 1 charge. So kind of replacing the Inferno Stone in the charged level 6 item slot there. So that's kind of cool. Whole bunch of new items to play around with. I'm looking forward to seeing those. And then there are a whole bunch of mercenary camp updates, just changing what's available on what type of map, costs. There's just a whole bucket load of changes here. You can see just so many changes, so I'm not going to go through them all. But yeah, a lot of changes to mercenary camps, giving map makers maybe some new options on how they use mercenary camps on their maps. And finally, a couple of changes to maps. Map pool is getting changed. Dalaran's being removed. Brightwater Oasis is in. I don't think Dalaran was in the Tornwind rotation anyway, so pretty minor change there. In terms of maps themselves getting changed, Twisted Meadows. This is probably the biggest one out of all these changes. Green Knoll camps near player start locations now has an extra level 1 Knoll, and the Knoll Brute drops a level 1 power-up item. So yeah, as I mentioned here, you'll be able to creep the green and the 2 yellow camps near your base and get level 3. So pretty big change to Twisted Meadows. And you know, it's kind of regarded as a map that's hard to creep, but by making that like first easy camp a little bit harder, maybe you'll be able to ramp into your creeping a little bit more effectively. So that's kind of cool. So that's it for me, guys. Hope you enjoyed this look at the 1.32.6 patch changes. Generally for the better, I would say. Pretty exciting stuff. And you know, it's nice that they're addressing just overlook things, even if they're not crucial to the balance, just addressing them anyway, maybe bringing in some more strategic diversity, especially like this deep in the game's history. It's kind of cool.